and we're going to be talking about leadership and what's important. And we're going to assess our leadership skills today. We're going to take some time to reflect on our leadership abilities and the efforts that we can make some improvements. Now, I'll tell you and share with everyone here, I'm a Toastmasters member, and I joined Toastmasters about 5 years ago. I started out in my company, Key Theory, doing website design. And after starting, I realized that I needed to work on my communication skills to become a better speaker, to be able to negotiate. And I got involved in Toastmasters, and it really helped me out. From the get-go, I started to focus on becoming a better speaker, how to use vocal variety, how to use gestures, body language, things of that nature to become a more effective speaker. Toastmasters is a nonprofit organization that helps people develop their communication and leadership skills. They have two different tracks. When I got started in Toastmasters, my focus initially was the communication side. In this past year, as I've gotten more involved in Toastmasters and gotten into the deeper levels of the leadership plan, I started putting more attention to my leadership skills and abilities. And I just completed my high performance leadership project. The high performance leadership project is a project where you choose something that you want to achieve, and then you set some goals and you work on achieving this project, and you use your leadership skills to lead a team of people, typically volunteers, to make things happen. While going through this program, I was able to assess my leadership skills, assess the weaknesses that I had, and then focus on improving the areas where I could get better at. And I'm not going to go on and on about this, but I just wanted to share the concept of B times do equals have. B times do equals have. So basically, be the person that you need to be, do the things that you need to do, and then you'll have the results that you want in your life. You have the results that you're trying to achieve. So if you're not quite getting the things out of your life or out of the group that you're working with, typically you're missing somewhere of doing something that you're doing, or you haven't developed yourself to the point of where you're being who you need to be in order to have the things that you want. So that's why it's really important to focus on self-growth. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm hoping everyone has the ability, they see a chat window and they're able to chat in. If you're able to chat in, go ahead and just drop a quick note and just say, hey, I'm seeing the chat window, I'm hearing you, I'm able to put a little chat in there. Should be a little chat box that you're able to see and access, and just type something in. If you can do that, that would be great. And I'm looking out for those answers coming in. Now, a little bit about my background. I'm a co-founder of Rock My Image, an authority marketing agency. As an authority marketer, we help people develop what makes them unique, their inner personality. We help them shine that, brand it, make it stick out, make them be the rock star that they are. We produce rock star professionals. I'm also the current president of the Jacksonville chapter of the American Marketing Association. But seriously, it's enough about me. Let's talk about the objectives of what we're going to learn today. Again, we're going to assess your leadership skills. We're going to get down to where you're at, what skills you have, so we can define where you need to grow. Then we're going to develop a plan of action to achieve that growth. Now, here's a little outline of our program today. We're going to go over service leadership, what it is, what it's about. We're going to discuss the 6 dimensions of leadership. We're going to do the leadership assessment. I'm going to show you the leadership blueprint, and then we're going to define our first actions. So here are the rules. I know, rules? Really? Do we need rules? Excellent, Printella. I'm glad you could be joining. The rules here today is this is Simon Cowell from American Idol, and he is plugging his ears because he doesn't want to hear it. And what I'm going to tell you today, you may have heard before, you may not want to hear it, but we need to come with an open mind and really understand that this is a time that you've invested to reflect a little bit in yourself, be honest with yourself, and listen to the information and absorb it. So this is your time right now. The world is stopped around you. This is your time to make something of this next moment and apply it and make it happen. You're in control of what you do with this information. So let's have fun. Let's get out there and do something. Let's have fun with this exercise. I'm going to be talking a bit, but I don't need to drone on and on. I want to percolate your mind. I want to percolate your mind and get you to think about things a little bit. Here we see 3 leaders, 3 really important leaders. Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and Martin Luther King. Let's talk a minute about the need for leadership today. As populations increase and cultures and people become increasingly diverse, more issues and more problems face us than ever before. Many people assume these major problems and important issues will be taken care of by government agencies. But this assumption is becoming less and less of a reality. Many of the critical issues and problems today are the kind government is least equipped to handle. You see this all over the place. We don't need government fixing our problems. We need people to develop strong leadership skills, develop their character. This is why the world needs strong, competent leaders now more than ever. Progress can happen only when someone assumes a leadership role. When someone decides there is a problem, a need, or injustice, and takes action to solve the problem, fulfill the need, or correct the injustice. History can relate the stories of many leaders who saw a problem or had witnessed some injustice. Example, Mahatma Gandhi led the Indian people in a revolution of nonviolent disobedience that finally toppled the entire British colony in India. Not the entire British colony. That would be ridiculous. But he led people. He had a belief. He had a vision. He shared it with others, and people got behind him. Mother Teresa, the missionaries of charity nun, she dedicated to helping the poor, moved thousands of people into action with no other authority than her moral conviction and strength of determination. Martin Luther King, he's led people to believe in his dream. He had a dream where people can be judged by their character versus the color of their skin. People believed in that dream. And although there still is tensions in the world, and there may continue to be, people have a tendency to not like people that are not exactly like them, he has changed the world because he's had that belief. We all have a huge potential power where we can change the world. And it takes having a vision and being a leader to make these changes happen. Followers don't change the world. So let's discuss the 6 dimensions of leadership. Number 1, vision and values. Number 2, direction. Number 3, persuasion. Number 4, support. Number 5, development. And number 6, appreciation. So let's look at the first dimension, vision and values. Good leaders, number 1, they imagine or envision what they would like to have happen. They understand what is happening now, and they decide what needs to happen in order to make their vision a reality. A leader has a vision for the team. They keep abreast of current events. They spot problems. They're knowledgeable about the work that people do. They're decisive. They practice their values. Now, I know right now I'm currently kind of going over these 6 dimensions, and I will take time to discuss these and share some aspects that we're going to do the assessment. But right now I'm just kind of going over these a little bit. See, on the right-hand side, we have Steve Jobs. He was a visionary. He started Apple Macintosh in his garage with a partner. And through the years, he became really successful. He was even fired from his own company, only to be later rehired back into the company when they were struggling to stay alive in the competitive market. He brought them back. He's a visionary because he thought outside the box. He had values that he believed in, and he led people to better success. Number 2, direction. Dimension of leadership number 2 is direction. This is Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a motivational speaker. He works with people to help them effectively set goals, and he also promotes delegating. He says everyone has the same hours in a day. So how come some people can do much more than others? And what he says is basically some people have learned to develop their leadership skills and delegate effectively, while others kind of get in this mindset where I need to do everything. And they try to do everything, and you can't do everything. There's only so much time you can work with. Number 3, holy smokes, look at this guy on the right. He looks like a tank. Could that be Arnold Schwarzenegger? Look at that face. That's more like intimidation than persuasion, but I thought that was a fun picture, so I put it in here. So when you're persuading people, obviously you don't want to intimidate the hell out of them, as Arnold might be doing. You want to persuade people by projecting self-confidence, communicating the big picture, calling attention to the goals that you have, communicating with people one-on-one, and following through with what you say you're going to do. The biggest thing here is, that self-confidence. People want to get behind a leader that they can believe in. If you are showing that you don't know what you're doing, that you're unsure, that you're insecure, chances of people getting behind you and letting them lead you are going to be slim, because no one wants to be led into the lion's den. Halfway. What does that mean? That means we're halfway through the 6 dimensions, kind of going over them. And while we're halfway through the 6 dimensions, I just wanted to throw this in there and say, here's what happens when you're not being an effective leader. You can notice Mr. Burns over here. Excellent. Mr. Burns is not an effective leader because he, number 1, doesn't give clear direction, but number 2, he is not doing the part. He's telling people what to do. He has bad expectations. And what he ends up doing is erasing efficiency, erasing people's beliefs. He takes away from the people that work for him by his management style. And you can make a lot of money doing that, but it does not become efficient. You can lead people in a lot of different ways. You can lead people by being very strong and telling people what to do, and they may do it, but you're not going to get them to buy in and support you when it really counts. So that's the halfway. Let's get on to the next dimensions of service leadership. Number 4, here we have the beautiful Oprah Winfrey. Support. Oprah Winfrey started off with the idea that she wanted to do something. She got into journalism at a young age. People never would have believed she could have taken her career to the heights where she currently is. She's had her own TV show. She has her own magazine. She has her own network. She's developed her personal brand. And people get behind her because she supports people. She helps people. And she leads. So the dimension is support. In support, you keep people informed on progress. You use resources wisely. You're creative and you manage your time well. I think Oprah definitely hits the nail on the head for those. Number 5, development. Development. It's developing people. It's teaching and coaching. It's building team spirit. And we have, oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank on her name. I even know it, but it's not there at the moment. It's exiting the mind. She's looking at me with a smug look like, you can't remember my name? I'm from The Biggest Loser. And I'm trying to say Lauren Michaels. Jillian Michaels. Hello, that's what it is. Jillian Michaels from The Biggest Loser. She's a trainer. She's really hardcore. She helps, teaches people, coaches people, builds team spirit. She makes things happen. She gets people in better shape. She's a good leader. And number 6, as we're wrapping up, going through the 6 dimensions, appreciation. It's giving praise and positive recognition. It's respecting the ideas and opinions of others. Using ritual, celebration, and ceremony. And on the right-hand side, we have the Dalai Lama, who I'm pretty sure has a high appreciation in his leadership skills. There's a lot of people that follow the Dalai Lama, what he does, and follow his teachings. And he really does appreciate a lot of life. He has a great book. I've read the book. I think it's called The Joy of Happiness or The Practice of Happiness. Probably should have looked some of these things up before this, but